Please, Fishkill Planning Board meeting will now come to order. Could I have a roll call?
John Eichman.
Steve Caswell.
Michael O'Brien.
Lori G.
John Cutler.
Craig Smith.
Ed Miyoshi.
If everyone would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have two upcoming meeting dates, July 16th and August 20th. And we have one set of meeting minutes for approval. I am recused on those, but Mike, both John C. and John E., Craig, Ed, Steve, and Chris were here. So do I have a motion to approve the April 16th minutes, or do folks need more time to review?
So moved.
Got a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. And I'm recused.
Last time we were
Not
here.
recused, I'm sorry, I abstained. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is Hunter's Ridge 4-lot subdivision on Devon Farms Road. And I think last year you did the review of all the laws that have been enacted since the original approval. If you submitted that site plan today, no significant changes, et cetera.
Correct, correct. And at the last meeting, we talked about some drainage improvements to avoid bonding of the project. So with those improvements included pulling back some of the grading along Devon Farms Road to create a negative transition from the road into the property. And then there was a drainage swale in the back that we installed to alleviate some runoff concerns to the neighbor below us. Those improvements started around September of last year, and they were signed off in the beginning of December. So we've worked through the Board of Health. We do have Board of Health approval right now. We've working with the town engineer on the easements that are on the parcel, and we're at a point now where we'd like to get extension and move forward and obviously file the map. We submitted a plan set to the town engineer for review. It got kicked back with a couple of comments relating to the stormwater that will be generated from the driveway creation going up and in. What we propose to mitigate is some infiltration trenches along the edge of the driveway to get the water in the ground. And when we were on site with Scott, with our pre-construction meeting, before we started grading along Devon Farms Road, originally we showed some driveway culverts and some yard basins within the right-of-way to kind of direct the water underneath the driveway and down to an existing ditch line. During that discussion, it was discussed maybe we don't need to do that. Let's just grade it and have the water come across the driveway. Since that time, they've taken a closer look at it, and they've asked for basically for the culverts to come back. The applicant doesn't have a problem producing that and showing that. We've in fact revised our plans to depict that. But what we'd like to do is make that subject to each individual homeowner applying for a building permit and a plot plan, and have us deal with the installation aspect at that phase. So what I did is, in our latest plan set, which I forwarded to Pete and Scott, is I described how this project's going to work. The applicant has sold his house. He's temporarily at his sister's house, so he's eager to build. So he will be, as soon as this map is filed and we have a tax ID number, we're going to pull a permit for Lot 5. That's the lower lot. We already have a house plan picked out. We've already started the plot plan. He'll install his driveway, culvert underneath, and as each homeowner comes online, they will be responsible for their each own drainage improvement. So if, let's say, John's the lower lot, let's say Lot 2 comes in, Lot 2 is required to install their driveway culvert and a swale down to Lot number 5's driveway culvert. So there'll be a transition to have water conveyed to that lower lot. If Lot number 2/3 go in because they have a shared entrance, whoever comes in first, if it's 2 or 3, they have to put in that drainage improvement and then swale down to Lot number 5. So I think we have the ability to do this.
Are there actual easements you're adding, or this is just a construction thing?
This is all these improvements are within the right of way.
Within the right of way.
Okay.
Now, Brian, what you just talked about, the process there, is that noted on the map here, just so when people get a copy of the map,
What I did is, on the last sheet, sheet 7.
Sheet 7.
It goes into construction phasing, so if you open it up, I actually highlighted it in pink, and I showed
okay.
the drainage swale to go in. So it is described both in a narrative and in a schematic off to the side.
So if I understand this right, if the furthest up the hill comes in after John's house, they're responsible for their culvert and a ditch line,
Temporary ditch line.
temporary
get
ditch
the-
line all the way down.
To get
And
the
I
jump.
show that on sheet 7.
So, being devil's advocate, what happens if a person from Lot 2 comes in on Monday, and a person comes in on Friday for Lot 3 or Lot 4? Is there any,
I mean, that's the crazy hypothetical, but I'm sure we could deal with that through notation on the plan. I think, through the control of
so
the plot
it'll-
plan process at
it'll
your
be-
office, you could handle
But I
that.
mean, even if we just establish whoever gets the not maybe a submission, but a building permit, whoever gets the building permit first,
Yeah, whatever,
type of thing?
I would say whatever notation we want to add to the plan, we'll make sure it's on bold and on the first sheet and within the construction phasing, so it's clearly notated.
Yeah, I think we should probably come up with a note that would just like advise, in some fashion, the people buying, the lots that they may have to do like a little bit more, than normal.
Yep.
To tie that in, so, can you, because I know that, what you've got here on the second, on the second page is kind of just more of a general like phasing plan,
Right.
right? I mean, it's not like, so if we could
Yeah,
just,
if you open up that second sheet, I actually show the temporary swale being installed from Lot 2 down to Lot 5. And again, we can work on the language, through email back and forth.
I mean, I think conceptually it's fine.
yeah,
just-
right, conceptually. And then I guess the only other thing is, I've got some easements to look at.
Right, right.
And I got sent those.
Yep. I think Tom's been working with the applicant's attorney, and I think the language, at least the language portion is satisfied. It's now just the easements, making sure that they're okay.
Meets and bounds and that kind of stuff, okay.
And then the only thing I would like to add is on the erosion, because you're seeking this extension, there is some erosion within the right-of-way that needs to be addressed. I didn't get to the swale up on the hill, but that should be visited as well and, corrected if need be.
Scott, is that something immediate or something to adjust on the plan?
It should be taken care of sooner rather than later.
Does that need to be part of a motion to extend
Yeah, that should,
this approval?
we should put that in the
Yeah, fine.
resolution.
Okay.
Within, how long would, do you know what Scott's asking?
No, I don't.
It's probably a, day's worth of work or something like that.
Yeah, I don't want that to hold up extension. I mean, whatever needs to
No,
be
I'm
done on
asking
site.
if we make a motion that's subject to whatever Scott's language is gonna be for the erosion control measures, are you comfortable that that's something, if we say 30 days or whatever number of days to get it done?
I'm assuming it's going to be hang and seating. As long as it's not vegetation establishment, I'm fine with that. But if it's...
Well, I mean,
if
there's
it's
some
put-
actual erosion, so you're gonna have to do some little grading and then do your, fabric and,
Right, we'll throw that down.
yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments from planning board members? Anything else, Scott or Pete, Michelle, Bob? Do I have a motion to approve a one-year extension for the Hunters Ridge 4-lot Devon Farms Road, final approval, subject to, what do you,
Corrective, erosion repairs, something to that
erosion
effect, yeah.
control repairs?
Yeah.
To be completed within the next,
30 days.
by
30 days?
30 days, within the
That
next 30 days.
should be more than adequate, yeah.
That the plan was completed in the next 30 days, not the actual erosion modifications.
No, just that the
So-
repairs are taken care of
No,
within
what he's
30
saying
days.
is the existing erosion control is deteriorating a little bit, so he
Ah,
just needs to
okay.
repair it.
Oh, I
Okay,
thought it
so
was-
I'm understanding that
We'll
correctly.
throw down some hay, we'll fill in some of the, there's been some ditch lines that have formed over the time since we, when the improvement was made, it was December, so vegetation didn't really have a chance to grab a hold. So what we'll do is we'll fix the silt fence and we'll put some check dams in to slow the velocity down.
Yeah, we can meet to review. It's nothing awfully significant, but it should be addressed, so.
Okay, so a motion to extend the subdivision approval for Hunters Ridge, 4 lots on Devon Farms Road, subject to, within 30 days updating the erosion control measures to the satisfaction of the town engineer.
So moved.
A
Second.
Motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
See you, Brian.
the next item on our agenda is also an extension of final approval from Donovan 5 BMAC LLC on Nancy Court.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Oliver Engel. Usually I'm represented by Michael Gillespie. Apparently he's unable to come today, so I'm speaking on my own behalf in this particular matter. We've come here before to get a 1-year extension or 2-year extension on getting a building permit for lot number 3 at 6 Nancy Court. And we're here again to do the very same thing. We appreciate the board's indulgence in the past years to do this. So I
If
spoke.
I recall last year, I think Michael had given us the letter that said that if you had submitted that plan at that time, that there would be no significant changes.
That's correct, and I spoke with him this morning, and he told me that the same applied at this particular time.
Since you just did that update with all of the laws and requirements from the town code, do I have a motion to approve Donovan 5? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
I'm
just
going
want to make
too
a couple of,
fast. I should have asked for comments.
just a couple of points.
Sure.
I'm in favor of the extension, but I would point out a couple of things, is the letter references a poor economy. I don't think
Yes.
everybody would agree with that. Secondly is, I know that there's a building that's, has not been able to be rented right next to it. But there's also like another 10,000 square feet of empty space. All I'm thinking is how heavily wedded you are to that one idea. But that's
idea
not
of
for us
building-
to sit here tonight and say.
Yes, I think in the letter I did write, I did reference the economy, and you're right in the sense that in general, the economy seems to be doing very well. I'm particularly thinking of the empty spaces at Summerlin Parliament Plaza, and all of the general area which has a lot of empty space, including the Nancy Court space owned by Mr. Bayakowski, which surrounds where we're located. So that's what I meant by that in that particular letter. Our goal, if we found a tenant or if we found a reason to build that building, in spite of whether or not there's 3,000 square feet of empty space next door, we would be happy to do so. The space has been, the empty space, which used to be occupied by Veterinary Wellness, the vet hospital, has been out for lease with Rob Bayakowski for 2 years now. Unfortunately, we've had some people look at it, but nobody has really been interested to the point where they wanted to go further. That's the situation as it stands right now.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Scott, Pete, Michelle, any concerns? I do have a motion to extend the Donovan 5 BMAC LLC site plan for a year.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an amended site plan, the next item on our agenda is the amended site plans. The first item listed for Global Foundries was pulled. The applicant is providing some additional
She's gonna text
information, so that'll come back on a future agenda. The item after that is iPark amended site plan and vehicle movement plan for building 330D, a minor site plan modification proposal.
Good evening, my name is Jared Schlosser. I'm speaking on behalf of iPark along with our engineer Mark Day and the site manager Mike Buckley. So the plan that you see here now is, it went through a couple of revisions thanks to the input from the professionals to my left. We had a good meeting on Friday and we just fixed some issues, namely the traffic control of through traffic through the area that is now being controlled by the gate there. So Mike Buckley is going to speak more to it along with Mark. So the company is actually from Brooklyn. They make crepes. I thought I'd bring a piece of the product in just for you guys to look at.
Pass it around.
They're delicious.
Frozen, right?
So you can find them in Whole Foods. Their current most popular product is the one that you're holding. It's egg white along with cauliflower to go with the gluten-free craze that's going on right now. So I thought I'd have that, but if Mark wants to step up.
Kinda cold.
There's more here if you guys want them. Got like a whole bag.
All right.
Mark Day, Day Engineering, representing Ivy Park. Mr. Buckley, what we're asking, or what we're here tonight to discuss is the creation of this new space, which will be by Crepini. What they need in order to make this happen is we need to create 2 bays for them to load. So what we've done is prepared a vehicular movement so that we could come into the front of the building or the west side, be able to back a tractor trailer into these 2 sites, and then pull ahead and do basically a U-turn and go out the same way that they came in. We have proposed a gate here to stop any vehicular through traffic going to the, I guess, the east. So we've taken out a stretch of what was existing parking. That's to be removed, scarified, seeded, topsoiled, seeded, mulched. We've also created a landscape island, if you will, to the west, of the proposed area where we'd load our loading dock. Other than that,
And some signage as well, no
oh,
through traffic.
signage, yes, there's no through traffic, we've added some of that, so.
Okay, and so the area where the trucks are gonna be traveling, there's no vehicular parking, you know what, nobody else? I know there were originally, you said there's parking spots there, but
There was a line of cars here.
Okay,
It's not needed as far as,
Okay.
it's a sea of parking out there, so what we've done is removed it here, and that would be able to allow us the truck movements.
okay. And Scott, I know Dave isn't here, but we've looked at the truck circulation pattern, the turning radii and everything, we're comfortable with that?
Well, it's a little complicated, it's gonna take a few motions, but that's why we wanted the road, blocked off from through traffic, so it takes a little longer to back the truck in, there's no conflict with traffic.
Okay,
Right, so what you would have seen earlier, before it was on the agenda tonight, was the global, their new security systems that's gonna be required for them to segregate off the site, which blocks off the other roads, and it's emergency traffic only. So the only people on that side are the Grappini trucks at this point,
okay,
all right?
Good.
And that's not front of house anymore, because things have changed around with the sale. So the front of house is actually the west of that building now, and that's where the employee parking will take place.
okay.
All right?
Very good. Aside from the 2 loading bays, are there any other changes and removal, reconfiguration of the parking area? Any additional changes?
No.
Okay.
No.
Questions or comments? Okay, Michelle, Pete, Scott, anything to add? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amended site plan and vehicle movement plan for building 330D for iPark?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did I say that it was a minor site plan amendment?
You did,
It was implied.
If-
It was
If I
implied.
didn't, I'm amending my motion. Minor site plan amendment.
We got that.
Plenty more crepes too, Jared. I highly recommend.
Delicious.
I know we talked about it at our meeting, but, gotta make sure.
Next item on our agenda,
Should we tell Laura?
Yeah, Lori,
yes, sorry.
just make a note that we need a Knox box on the gates, emergency services can get
I'm
through.
sorry.
We
The
need a Knox box,
box?
yes,
Ah,
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we need to amend the motion, or was it already on the plan?
I just want it in the minutes,
Okay.
but I'll make sure that I make a note and give it to you.
Okay, so, Mark, I don't know if you caught that, we're gonna amend the motion to include Knox box access for the gate that's being built.
We do
That just
that,
allows emergency vehicles to get through.
yeah, we do that site-wide already, so that's part of the plan. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is Curry Estates or Le Chambord at 2737 Route 52, again amended site plan. Anybody out in the lobby? Free Estates? Okay. We'll come back to that. We'll call it, please help me remember,
Well, yeah.
members of the board, we'll call it again towards
That never
the end of the meeting.
Okay. I'll wait till the end.
Yeah, we'll
and
just
see.
circle back.
Yeah.
We can always,
Okay, the next item on our agenda are amended final resolution for Hopewell Square amended site plan, final resolution at 109 Route 376.
I was gonna
Oh
say,
boy, I feel like I'm striking out here.
wow, we're gonna
Hopewell
have to come.
Square amended site plan, we'll also circle back, last call. Michelle, there was nobody in the lobby, right? Okay.
Wow.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a sketch plan review for Paradise Preserve site plan at 12 Deverly Lane.
Right up front.
How are you? I'm Ralph Alfonzetti. I'm the engineer for the project. So we have here on this site, it's 155 acres. Approximately 112 are in the town of East Fishkill and 42 are in the town of Beacon. It used to be an old Girl Scouts camp. There's some abandoned structures, some old cabins, old tennis court, things like that that are still on the site. We're proposing a recreational camp that'll have cabins that are kind of dispersed throughout the site. They're approximately 800 square feet each cabin. Each cabin will have a little organic garden outside, and the idea is people will come and rent the cabin for the season, the year, the month, and things like that. This is just a preliminary sketch plan just to get this in front of you, get some ideas from the board, and see how you feel about it.
So I think, this is just a clarification. My first question is, I thought I read in the application it was 10 to 50, but I see here in our
I think
agenda
it
it's
should be
10 to
10.
15 cottages.
It's 10 to 50, right? Yeah, it's 10 to 50. It is.
50.
Yeah,
5-0,
50.
not 15.
So just to, for the purpose of our,
And that includes the ones in Beekman as well? Are they
Yes.
within the 10 to 50? Okay, so that, I'm sorry, you said 42, so the bulk of this really is in Beekman?
No, 42 acres are in Beekman, 112 acres are in the town of East Fishkill.
Ah, okay.
and the development, how much of the development itself that you're proposing is in the town of Beekman?
How many units are going to be there?
Yeah,
I would say anywhere from 20 to 25.
so about half of the cabins.
Yeah, right now, this plan shows 33.
Okay. Can you just maybe outline the town boundary and then just show us where the cabins are, just with your hand, it's fine.
Yep.
Isn't that all within East Fishkill?
So
Thought so, that's why.
this is the line right here,
Okay,
East Fishkill, town of Beekman,
okay,
Great Hollow Road.
yep.
And right here, there is an existing, it's an old road base, it's called Deverly Lane. It shows up on your maps, but I don't think there's actually a right-of-way there. And the cabins are right now dispersed right here. This is,
That seems like that's all East Fishkill, so we're asking you how much of the
Right, but
development
that's
would
the-
be in the
Or is
town
that
of
just the
Beekman?
East Fishkill development?
that's just the East Fishkill development. The Beekman part is not shown in this plan right now.
Okay, so don't we need to see the holistic?
How is access derived for Beekman? Through East Fishkill?
Yes.
So, yeah, you're gonna have to have a,
Okay,
Yeah.
so that would be our first comment to you, is give us the holistic plan.
Okay?
Is there something different in the town of
No.
Beekman, or just more
No,
cabins?
I just
more
didn't think
similar?
you guys, it's not part of your jurisdiction, that's so I just didn't show it.
well, it's not,
But our traffic counts and things like that are all
Yes,
gonna be.
yes.
and also that we have to determine on SEQR to coordinate the review between both towns.
Yep,
So
somebody has to be lead agency.
now, is it a permitted use in Beekman also, or?
I know the owners are here tonight, I'm sorry about that, Pete and Christine Monteleone. I know they had a conversation with the town of Beekman, and they had favorable comments and remarks.
Okay. Okay.
So do you have an estimate or range on how many additional cabins would be on the Beekman side? 'Cause you're talk-
Approximately 20 to 25.
Oh, that's at 20 to 25,
Yep.
right, okay, more.
Quick question is, will these things all have individual septic?
Thank you. Those are some samples of the cabins that we're talking about. Some will have an individual septic, and we might have to tie 2 or 3 or 4 into a septic.
Okay. And this is all DEP watershed,
This is
correct?
DEP
Okay.
watershed, yes.
Just, don't mean to play the role of the negative, just kind of jumping out there.
So you were also proposing, in addition to the cottages, which, are they seasonal, or are they gonna be insulated year-round?
They'll be year-round, and we are also proposing, there's going to be a central barn on site. That'll kind of be a central location where there'll be supplies and equipment, upkeep for the cottages, the roadways, the gardens. There's also a caretaker's house that we're proposing right along Grape Hollow Road.
So I thought you've got, and it says 5 to 6 houses on the property along Great Hollow.
That's not in this proposal right now. That could be in the future.
Okay, so if it's something that would be kind of foreseeable future, we need to show it on the plan.
Okay?
And I thought the other notation was that we weren't gonna subdivide the property, it was for family or something like that?
Yes, there's no subdivision proposed.
So I don't know, Michelle, I know this is agricultural, so I don't know what the multiple residences on a single.
So we had a discussion with them, and I made them aware of the fact that they were unlikely to get, they would probably have to subdivide property off in order to build the homes. And we discussed one of the special permit that they would be coming under, one of the requirements is that they have a 250-foot buffer. So they understand that if they did subdivide, they would still need to maintain 250 feet from the edge of wherever they subdivided the property before any of the structures on the site, if they were to get a special permit.
So with an agricultural use property and this proposal, is this are they rental cabins, or are they?
They are rental cabins, yes.
But it's intermittent, it's not like a year-long lease or anything like that.
You could get a year-long lease.
Year-round.
Yes.
Well, that,
That
I
may
don't
be a
know
little-
if that may be an issue, because it's, the section of our ordinance is for camping and cabin,
So
which
we
doesn't
can-
imply that it would be,
So we would need to limit it to,
I think we would have to see that it was an intermittent rental, not, and then also, if it were year-round, it'd be number of units on the lot, but it would also create a school district impact, so.
Right, because I was gonna ask you, is this viewed, I know it's not the same as a hotel, but if it were more seasonal rentals or short-term rentals, is that how we would look at this? I'm just, with an agricultural use, I know there's the overlay.
Well, the agriculture is out of it once this is there.
Right, I think
Yeah.
once we've created this, if they get this special permit, technically, there is some discretion in a special permit, but technically, what they're asking for as far as the camp, they would be allowed to do via the special permit, as long as they met the specific conditions of the special permit. And in the special permit, there's a bunch of different uses described, including motels, restaurants, membership clubs, camps, and a bunch of different things. So, but there is some discretion given to the planning board about the density and the way that the site is laid out.
Okay. So is there like an organization affiliation here, or this is just, you said there's gonna be a central barn and events and things like that, is that?
no, I'm not sure what you mean by an organization. I mean, there's an owner that would, there's a company that
So
would.
you said it was formerly a Girl Scout camp?
Correct.
So I'm kind of asking, is there something similar, like?
No.
It's a commercial, it's, right,
Yes.
similar to, up in Maine, you see this a lot, the rentals that have some common buildings that people can
Correct.
utilize, yeah.
But that's, I think of that more as seasonal, Tom, versus
Yes,
like a
yeah.
year-round use. That's why I'm just trying to.
Correct, right.
Level set what we're looking at. As far as the agricultural zone, I'm assuming because each cabin is gonna have its own garden, that it still will continue to meet its agricultural requirements, or is that something we're gonna have to watch as part of the planning process?
I think you're working currently right now with the ag district, right? Yeah, because I think they're planning to do some farming and bees, is that
And
the other
yes,
thing?
and
You're doing
beekeeping.
beekeeping and,
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So-
Interesting. Okay. Is anybody on the board familiar with this property? I remember it being a Girl Scout camp way back when, but I don't think I've ever been there, at least not in recent history. Is the site walkable, or is it?
It is walkable.
Willing to,
Yes.
if the board members are interested, would you be willing to let us do a site visit?
Sure.
What does the board think?
Thanks,
I
yeah,
just think
please.
I think it's a unique use, so it'd be interesting to just kind of see what's out there right now and get a feel. You could kind of show us we'd want you to meet us out there and kind of show us what you're planning and give us a feel for the site.
Yep, absolutely.
Have you had any discussions with DEP yet about the septic?
We did some testing with Dutchess County Health Department. DEP did not show up. They were invited. And we have an application into them.
Or you don't?
Yes, but they wanted some feedback from the town. They wanted a secret determination and things like that.
Have you talked about process with them?
Yeah, we did meet, and Scott and I made it clear to them that it was in the DEP watershed and that the septic was going to be an issue on the site, so we thought that it would be good for them to do some advance notification to the health department and to DEP to find out what may or may not be required to make sure that it was even a feasible application. So that's,
There was a camp adjacent to this, I believe, that DEP acquired rather than contribute to the cost of redoing the sewer treatment on the site, so.
How
I
far?
did mention that. Camp Edward Isaacs, that's the
Yeah.
one I mentioned to
Okay,
you guys, yeah.
okay.
And there's some steep slopes on this as well, correct?
There are some steep slopes, yes.
Okay.
So if we want to do a site visit, usually we do those on a Saturday morning. If that still works for the board, if that's difficult, and we could do an evening. It's like the light stays bright now for some time.
Works best for me.
Maybe either the 29th, maybe, that would be a week from Saturday. This coming Saturday is probably tight.
They're out of town that
I'm
week.
out of
that
town.
weekend.
I'm out of town also, actually.
Okay, no problem. Maybe we can coordinate through the planning office, we'll get dates that are good for the planning board members then, and we'll just ask you to work with us, we'll reach out to you and say, okay, would any of these dates work, and we'll figure it out. Is an evening also possible if we can't find a Saturday?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, that might be
Okay.
better.
great. Okay, we'll figure that out then, and we'll, Pam, I'm assuming we can just publish whatever date is chosen? Thank you. I think it's interesting. It's not something we see every day here with the planning board, but it seems like it's a pretty benign use, especially for an agricultural overlay. As far as the density of the cabins and what we already talked about with the residences and things like that, I think there's a little bit more work that you're gonna need to do to see what the actual buildable acreage would be and figure out what the maximum number of cabins would be and the location of those cabins. I think that's more to come. I know this is only a sketch plan review, so didn't expect any of that, but just from our perspective, that's the kind of stuff we would start to look at. We'd also start to look at, depending on your time of operation and things like that, and the, again, however many cabins and density you're gonna end up with both here and in the town of Beacon, since they're gonna be accessed through this site, we'd want to start to get a feel for number of cars and things like that,
Gotcha. Okay.
traffic, just to see whether any of the surrounding roads would be adversely impacted.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Couple things. Should probably also meet with the fire department, because you're talking about
We
that.
talked a little bit about the driveways, and we weren't exactly sure how that was going to be handled, and it also depends on where the cabins ultimately end up.
Right.
So that was one of the reasons also for the site visit.
Because it, I mean, you know, it is a very long,
Maybe the fire advisory board could join us.
because it's a very long, you know, as we can see, it's a very long, you know, like dead end, and, you know, they'll probably have certain, you know, requirements, you know, for widths, you know, of roads and that kind of stuff, and then the other thing is, you know, I assume that we would be looking at this as one total, like, project, you know, for seeker purposes. We're gonna analyze the whole, like, site, even though that they may do it in phases, maybe.
Correct.
But we're gonna analyze it all as
Yes,
one
we-
site,
We
right?
talked about that, yes, as well, to make sure that they put everything down, that they were, or discussed everything that they were ultimately thinking about doing. Because initially, I believe you only wanted to do one cabin in the barn, and I asked them to present everything that they were thinking about doing, just in case.
Yeah, and it's fine to phase it, if if
Yeah,
you have a
right.
grand plan and
Sure.
you're only gonna do part of it initially, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. Do you have other questions for us?
I don't.
I had one more. Is where will the 5 houses go? And
Long Grape
Great
Hollow.
Hollow,
right,
so they can go along here.
okay,
There's one shown there now,
Okay.
as the caretaker's house. So we would just space out 4 more along there.
so is that going to conflict with the setbacks for the back? I mean,
No, because we've kind of mapped out, so the back property line, no cabin would be closer than 250 feet from that back property line.
Okay.
If we end up going that route.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Comments?
Is there some reason why you're not going to do the subdivision on those other houses? Just seems like that's going to cause problems in the future in case somebody wants to sell one or buy one or something.
To do the subdivision?
To subdivide where the houses are going to be off of the main property.
Well, if it's gonna complicate or restrict the cabin development, then we won't do it. You know, we'd rather do the cabins than the houses.
Any questions, comments? Hopefully this gave you a little bit of information to move forward, and
Yep.
then we'll contact you to arrange a site visit.
Okay?
Would be all right if we will invite the fire advisory board too, in case they want to see the site. I don't know how, we'll usually get at least a few of us able to attend, and we'll try to coordinate that with you.
Okay.
Great.
fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion for Montage.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dominic Cordisco, attorney for Charbel of Dutchess, and we're happy to be back before you on a revised, proposed, final finding statement for this project. We've submitted a red line version, which we understand that the board is reviewing, and since it's been some time, it might be helpful to reorient you regarding the project. And we can obviously answer any questions that you may have. It's been quite some time since we've been, proceeding on this project before the town. Actually, I've joked before, but, I had no gray hair when this project started. But nevertheless, here we are, and we're moving forward at this time. Hopefully have addressed all technical comments at this point, and but the project itself has a long history going back to 2005. And so with that, I would offer up Mark Day to walk you through the project, if he may.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to say that, or you want me to say it? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gradisco. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the planning board. You may recognize me, some of you may not. I'm Mark Cannoli with Charbel Dutchess Incorporated. We were here several times over the past, I want to say 11 years, talking about the project. The initial process with our project started in 2005 when the planning board became lead agency. Over the course of the years, the project was a senior housing development. The town elected years ago to go in a different direction. We, at that point, decided to proceed with the as-of-right residential subdivision, and that's where we are working with you today. We used the cluster residential design. The original submission for this project, just to give some of the new members an idea, was submitted after a revised scoping document back in 2011. So we've been through the draft findings and we went through the final SEIS. That's all uploaded to our website, and we're working with you now on the draft finding statement. So what we have is a 380-acre parcel, 340 of which we have under contract for the Montage at East Fishkill subdivision. That includes 122 single-family lots. Typically, they range in size from 80 to 90 feet wide.
to 110 to 120 feet deep.
The findings there.
There are several pockets of wetlands on the property which are delineated, both DEC and Army Corps. There are, the site includes floodplain. Let's look at the paper plan. I think it's easy enough. The property is south of Route 52 at the intersection of 216. Most of you are familiar with the site. Okay, good. So we can skip to the good part. The last time we were before you was just after we had received staff review of our original draft of the finding statement. That was dated January 19th, 2018. So back in the beginning of last year, we were here to talk about that, and we had several comments that the staff provided. What we did since then was, well, we focused on three major comments. The first was the issue with FEMA and what looked like a discrepancy in our mapping, and that was brought to our attention by your floodplain administrator, Mr. Witt. It turned out there was a typo on one of the base flood elevations, which caused some concern. We went back to FEMA, amended our letter of map revision. All of that now jives. We sent all of that information to Mr. Witt. He concurred. We have a permit from floodplain that's dated July 2nd, 2018. So that issue, I believe, is completely resolved. That's in the last submission. Couple questions if I could, Mark. One, how did the delineated areas shift? I mean, we didn't get a before and after picture in this latest submittal, and it It was... didn't shift at all. What happened was there was a discrepancy in a base flood elevation, Right. which made your floodplain administrator think that the two wetlands, one on the north of this spine road, if you will, and the one to the south, were connected and fluctuating at different heights and elevations. From what I understand, Mr. Day will tell you more about it. So the net is, it did not change. Doesn't change That typo anything. did not change the area No delineated. layout has to change, and that was the big Okay. concern. Does your layout have to change? Usually with an elevation Yep, change, you right, expect no. it to kind of shift. Exactly. Okay, and that's what we had to prove, and we've proven that. okay. Second major point in the staff review memo, I'm not saying there's others, but the main points, was the interconnectedness with Summit Woods and our ability to connect our road as a secondary access out to 52, as well as our agreement to connect the sewer and water treatment plants. Since the beginning, we had talked about a regional treatment plant. That has moved much further along the lines now, where we're working with Mr. Bryant in the town to extend our sewer, along with Summit Woods, up to the Four Corners treatment plant, and that's where the sewer treatment will be treated. We're working with Summit Woods on those documents and those cross-access easements, and have some of those in here in a developer's agreement. That's been included. What we need to do once we, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Back on that point, the latest submittal we got just showed that I believe that Four Corners would be the most likely option, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And given that, then, that the pipeline basically just goes right straight out through the wetland?
No.
No. Where does the pipe?
It does not. Well, there's two options, and most likely what will occur, and that plan is in here, the routing,
Okay.
sewer routing plan. It will go up our main master plan road, out to the intersection of 216, go up 216 all the way up to Phillips Road? Phillips Road. And then up Phillips Road and under Fishkill Creek and through an easement to the Four Corners treatment plant. That alignment was submitted to the Army Corps, and the Army Corps approved our permit.
Okay.
The other way, if we connect, we'll probably connect the two projects, but there could be an additional routing plan out through Summit Woods, again, up to 16, up 52,
Oh, 52.
Old 52, I'm sorry, Old 52.
Okay.
I'm not a local like some of the others here, so. Although I feel like it now. I feel like it. But, so I was just going to wrap up the third. That's okay. And I understand that Summit Woods submitted Their most recent submission was in February, and it should coincide with what we're saying, because we've been working together with them, and Mr. Day can talk further on that. And then the last was the Army Corps permit. In the middle of last year, we were close to getting the actual permit, and because some things had changed with regard to our sewer alignment and where we were routing sewer, I'm sorry, did you want to address? Okay. We had to go back to Army Corps and discuss the latest change. We thought that it wasn't a big change. We thought, in fact, rather than having a regional sewer treatment plant on one of our sites and routing that sewer up to the existing sewer treatment plant, that would be less of an impact. There was a question as to whether that needed additional public comment at the Army Corps level. Turned out that it did not. And in January of this year, it was January 8th, 2019, they issued the Army Corps permit. So that's addressed, and that includes the routing that we just talked about with the sewer going up the Four Corners.
Can I just stop you there? How about water? Does that also include the water?
It was, it showed both the alignment. It was basically you do a redundant system of sewer and water in a trench in the main road, and where across the creek, that was shown. That's in here, you know, I could point it out to you, but you have that.
Okay.
So those were the three, I think, big touch points when we were here. In addition to that, there were some other comments, you know, regarding the bridge maintenance and other things that was hard, I think, to understand where it fell in the document. Those items were also addressed, and what I tried to do, and it was a joint memo, I'm sorry, from Peter as well, or Mr. Sotaro and Mr. Ellis. We addressed all of the comments from the January 19th, 2018 memo and our technical memo. And then we supplied a red line version of the finding statement that I think addresses all those comments and carries everything over. So what we believe is, in addition to the exhibits that we have here, that we have a complete finding statement for your consideration.
And I'm sorry if you said this, but I didn't hear you say it. One of the other things, not just the utilities, but we were also looking for an alternative egress point in case one of the bridges fails. Are you reliant on Summit for that, or did you?
We have a developer's agreement with Summit Woods. It allows us to proceed prior to them starting construction to build the remaining section. I guess you can't see it on here either, can you? There's a
That's okay. If you're
connecting
gonna build
road.
out
You
part of
remember
their
the spine
road, so you
road.
get back
It
to
goes all the way out to
52.
52. We have the right
Okay.
to build, if we needed the sewer alignment to go through there, if we need, you know, the emergency access to go through there, we have the right to do that. There's a plan in our document that shows that road, built to a certain spec that I think the town has seen.
I just recalled that being a.
That was one of the other major items, correct.
Okay.
So, we've been checking in with staff on whether there's been any review memos. I haven't seen anything. This was submitted in April. We've been keeping touch with Ms. Bear's office and making sure that we have everything in place. So, short of that, if there's questions, we're here to answer them, but we'd also like to understand, you know, what's next with the finding statement and whether that has to be a document that we host on our website, because then we'd like to, you know, return to you with our preliminary and final subdivision plans and continue that process.
And let me just ask, your website is up to date with all the documents you've submitted,
Nope.
everything being considered?
The only thing I haven't loaded to that website is the technical memo and this draft, because I obviously need your approval to do so.
Okay.
And I'll include the last memo from the town and then everything we submitted, so it'll all be in one location.
When I looked at the clustered, you know, the lot layout, it didn't look like any of those had changed since the preliminary version either, correct?
None of them have changed.
I'm
Nothing on
sorry,
this
could you
plan.
say- Did you say you're ready to file a site plan or
Well,
subdivision
we
application?
started, and
Yeah.
you got to correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Okay.
recall this was the process. We opened the public hearing the first time
Right,
on, at that time was the draft
with the C, of the,
SCIS,
right,
the preliminary
Right.
subdivision,
right,
and we opened that. We closed the public hearing on the
Right.
DS.
correct. So we have
And
to-
held open
okay.
the preliminary, so we would like to come back,
Right,
obviously,
so
and
we're
finish
all on the
that
same page
process.
with that.
And you'll get to see more details on the plan.
And I know we have another meeting tomorrow, actually, to finalize, hopefully finalize some comments. I think there's just some semantics we have to work out with you. For instance, I think we were looking at it that it would be a sewer and water district established as opposed to transportation corporations for your sites. And, you know, little things like that. And the bridges, I think the way we resolved that was that the roads are gonna be turned over to the town, and the bridge, the culvert, or whatever you call that, underneath, would be part of the drainage district that would be established.
That's correct.
I think I was still reading, and maybe I'm, misinterpreting it, that the homeowners association was gonna play a role in the maintenance of it. But if it's if the road is traversing that structure, I think we have to have control. That when it needs to be replaced, we'll replace it, and it'll be a charge against the drainage district.
Yes.
Okay, so just little things like that.
I think what we did was we kept part of that open because there was a discussion about
Right, I mean, I
the
think
HOA
these are-
maintaining certain parts and the
Right.
town owning.
Well, most of it they
others,
would,
yeah.
except I think that part, if the road's gonna be ours, we wanna have control. and
There was a
ability to do
maintenance
that.
component and then a replacement
Right,
component, I think.
correct,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
So we'll, that's the kind of things
I
that I'm
mean, those are
looking at.
comments that we could get from the town and then just
Yes,
supply
right
a
into
second,
the development.
final draft, if you will.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
right.
I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but page 10 speaks about the water system connecting the four corners, and I'm just not quite clear. It speaks about a secondary water source.
I think what I mentioned was,
That was just keeping your wells as a
We all know
secondary
that the
source,
wells
right?
on the Montage D Fishkill site are very good
Right.
producing wells. They're there, they exist today. We thought to ourselves, why would we want to decommission good
that
water
becomes the
source?
secondary
So that's a secondary
Right, okay,
source, and it
right.
gets connected.
It's just the way we
I
read
think
it.
of the way we
Okay,
read it, yeah.
Yeah,
That's all.
that's what it was meant.
If I could, with Summit Woods, the problem with these projects that stretch years is if you see there's a lot of new faces, is how would we prep for the final, just to read through, where are all the most recent versions of the various documents for the
They're on their
Let me speak
website
for
for
ours. Ours are at,
Right.
and it's in here, I've put the web address in here.
And just to,
Montage at, spell out A-T, eastfishkill.com.
And
They're all there.
Okay.
The only thing that you don't see is this. That's not a lot to upload. I can do that tomorrow if you told me to.
and with Summit Woods, they mentioned that they filed, but then they've taken it back and are working on gathering their documents and everything and updating a website so that we can access it, right, Mark? That's
He
yeah.
actually, Dan decided to do this on his own, learned a lot, shouldn't have done that, but he's done. So I don't know if he copied you, Michelle, in an email saying he's got everything done.
All right, because I reached out to his counsel last week or so, and he said they were still working on it.
Yeah,
so.
they're complete now,
Okay.
he's done, he's ready to release it.
Okay.
Every email with the agencies you were all concerned about, DEC, Army Corps, FEMA, every correspondence with the professionals, everything that we've sent to the town or received has been scanned, labeled as in the appendix, and you can go right to the front of the document and know exactly where it is. It's pretty easy to follow, and, you can do it from your laptop or wherever you are.
Thank you. Yeah, we limited the prep to just the last
I
submission.
think the best part to read in each one of these is the executive summary in the beginning of each, because it does walk you through. I just did it tonight before I came up here, and this shows everything we've done in front of you, and where we've submitted something, got something back, and there's 20 entries, and it goes back to 2005. So there's a lot to track. But if you really want to just stick to the meat of the document, you could read the summaries in the beginning, and then it points back to all the other various documents that have been uploaded over the years.
That's great that you guys have kept that current, because I
Good
think
for us
that's where,
too, because it's
that's
hard
where
to
Summit
remember
Woods-
what we did last. I can't remember the last time we were here. So it's been a while.
Michelle, is there anything that you know of that we need from the applicant in order to be able to finalize this document?
No, I think, again, we're meeting to discuss the final details tomorrow, but at this point in time, I think we've got everything submitted, and we just need to make sure that we provided them our final comments.
Okay.
So I'm still, just when your subdivision plan would be ready to be filed, so that the board could get into that process?
We would do that once the board adopts this finding statement, because then we know, because there's been, you know, a selection of the water and sewer options, you
Okay.
know, have been finalized
So
at
it's
that point.
relatively soon, I guess, that you'll be ready.
We would be following it,
Okay.
correct.
Great.
Please don't let that stop you.
No, no.
The finding statement gets circulated as well, because at
Yeah,
the
no, I
at the
know
end of
there's
it,
some
right? So we would have to
statutory
do
time,
that and
Yeah,
wait,
so
till- okay.
what would happen, if I may, I mean, the board,
Let's
once they're
just have you
sat.
from closer to the mic if you
Yes,
don't.
of course. You know, I mean, the board, once you're satisfied, you would adopt the seeker finding statement, which is a summary of all the findings as it relates to environmental mitigations. And then after that, we would file with you, or present to you, a proposed subdivision plat that would meet all of your preliminary subdivision requirements. There would be a public hearing on that plat, you know, because there was a opening of a public hearing back when the environmental review was going, and then that was closed, and we've responded to those comments. But the plan has been updated, and so people get the opportunity to comment on the plan as it exists now and as it relates to the final engineering at that time.
Questions or comments from board members? You can recirculate the email address if you haven't had a chance to see. I know a lot of you haven't probably been with this since 2005.
Yeah.
But it's a large body of work, and I appreciate that you have it updated on the website and in order. It makes it much easier for us.
Version control is everything. Thank you. Thank
Michelle,
you.
Pete, Scott, anything else we need to address with Montage?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions for us? I mean, I know,
No, I think
like
in,
Michelle said, we're going to be close to having final comments and final draft ready to be posted.
Great.
One point of clarification. When that final finding statement is completed, do we return to the planning board for final acceptance? Is that how it's, or do we just get the okay to circulate?
I think we would.
We've done it before where we've finished the document and then we circulate it. I just wasn't sure what the
You mean
process.
for comments?
Well, at the end of that document, it says that it gets circulated,
Right.
does it not?
it does.
So then I guess we can finalize it and then,
Yeah.
Do you prefer to come back?
I
or do you-
mean, I enjoy my time with you. I don't mind coming up. But
Let's face it,
because I know
we
you
are-
you have a long night ahead.
We are fun. I mean, we know
We
that.
do that through email and then finalize it with your blessing and circulate it. That's my question.
Okay,
I
subject
certainly
to,
will certainly consider, we're open to it, I don't think
Okay.
we
Yeah, yeah, we
have
have
a hard and fast
no.
position against it.
Right, right. We'd like to see your comments, but assuming that they're not substantial, then we would,
Right.
you know,
I think it's just as things that I've illustrated, I think all of our comments are gonna be in that.
right.
General
And they
category.
were clarifications that we can certainly
Exactly,
make,
yeah.
you know. So, I mean, you're absolutely right there about the districts, you know, the transportation corporations was a holdover
Right.
from prior
Exactly,
options.
so we just
you
clean
know.
some of that up, I think we'll be all set.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you all very much.
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to return back to the
And this,
prior items on our agenda that we didn't have. Has anybody arrived for the iPark?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
sorry.
That's one of the.
Global Foundries.
Three C.
Yeah, for Curry Estates, excuse me. For Curry Estates, Lachambord?
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait.
All I got was
Michelle?
what was in that email, yeah.
I know that you and Scott have been working the Curry, with like a stepped
Yes,
plan.
I can
mean,
speak to
are-
it.
Are there going to be like gated if we, why don't you speak to it? That way-
I can absolutely speak to it, and I guess you guys can decide whether or not, I thought she was gonna come here to present. We talked about her coming the first time at least to present. So
You prefer that in
Basic-
case we have questions, but
Yeah.
it sounds like this is fairly
this is
minor.
very, very minor. Basically, there was some activity going on at the site, so we conducted a site visit out to Lachambord, and they're renovating. And it's a family business, and they are doing some site improvements, and including, they had a driveway that went up and there was some drainage on the side, and they just kind of shifted the driveway slightly over, but it is a site plan change. There was a planter that used to be in the middle of the driveway, and they're replacing that planter footprint with a fountain instead of a planter. And they,
More of a waterfall feature than
Yeah.
than an actual fountain.
yeah. And then they also had there's a sign that's currently at the site, and they're replacing that sign with their new sign. The only issue is the sign is not on the original site plan. So there's all these little tiny tweaks to the site plan, and we expect.
But it's the same location as the
It's
Lushamore sign's been
same
forever,
exact location
so-
that's been forever, but it's just not anywhere shown on a site plan. So theoretically, when they revise their site plan, they should show the sign there, and they should show all these other little tweaks. But we also understood, based on our site visit, that they may have additional minor tweaks, like they may adjust some of the sidewalks, they have an outdoor pavilion, they may do some different things over there. So there's a few things that may come in that are also, would be minor nature.
May add some lighting.
They may add some lighting, and fencing, I think was the other thing. And so we came up with a process so that they wouldn't have to revise their site plan each time at a huge expense, that we would give them a certain time period and they could make these minor revisions, and at that point, then they would do an as-built, showing everything all at once. And they agreed to that, and so right now, these 3 changes that we discussed tonight are what they're proposing to do. Every time before they make a change, they will submit a narrative and an application, and we'll present it to you.
I'd like the applicant, at least at some point, to appear for us.
So them missing tonight isn't going to delay any of that schedule or any of that stuff? It's not like,
No.
okay, good.
Michelle, do we have a timeline where the final as-built needs to be completed?
Yeah, right now it is December 31st, 2020. We chose the end of the calendar year for accounting purposes.
I'm sorry, which is what?
December 31st, 2020. So they have basically a year and a half to make all their site plan.
Dates.
Yep.
Okay.
Like another, for instance, was they had an old storage building that was demolished because it was in disrepair. It doesn't, meet setbacks. If they replace it in the same footprint within a year, then they're fine. If they choose not to replace it, but there's no point amending the site plan yet till they decide, what they want to do with that building, so.
Okay. So there's a water feature, the
So the-
sign location.
And
Was
then
there
a
any change
driveway.
to the size of the sign or anything, or just its location?
They didn't even change the location. The location's, it's exactly where it is. It just was never shown on a site plan before. So we're just wanting to make sure that
I
it's.
remember that. I remember that it wasn't on them. And the driveway realignment.
Yep.
Just those 3 changes for this evening.
Correct. And they did provide a copy of the site plan where so we have a record of what each application is showing.
Scott, any concerns these seem pretty benign, any concerns from the building perspective?
No, I think we've been in
Comments?
good communication with what changes they're looking at. Nothing significant. Anything comes along that is significant, we'll bring it to your attention, so.
Okay.
The other thing we're hoping is that they able to change the profile coming out of the entrance to a little, softer profile, but they have to work that out with DOT.
Okay. And don't they have 2 entrances
Same
now?
location, it's just a little steep when you pull out.
Don't they have 2 entrances now, or is it just the one?
It's kind of a wide one right there,
Okay.
like an in and an out type of thing.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have questions or comments for
Well,
Michelle?
I just think we should point out that this process is to accommodate a business that's been in town for a long time, and to help an ongoing business keep going. I think the town's been most cooperative, especially the engineer and planner, in working out this, because they were minor adjustments to the plan.
You're here.
I think that's great. I'm all for it.
So do I have a motion to approve the water feature, sign update, and driveway realignment as manually or handwritten updates on the existing site plan with the condition that a final as-built will be completed by December 31, 2020? Do I have a motion to approve those changes?
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Michelle, for presenting that for us. And then we have one other item on our agenda, an amended final resolution for Hopewell Square amended site plan and final resolution at 109 Route 376.
I mean, this one, is that you guys?
Yep,
Oh, good.
that's them.
Okay.
How you doing?
I know.
We're from Hopewell Square. I believe we're just back, I think, just for it was already approved during the whole approval of the site plan, the existing building that's at 109, 105, 107.
Oh, yeah.
That existing building is becoming full daycare upstairs, and the other people moved over to the new building we built. So I guess they just want us, we're in the process now of getting ready
These
to,
buildings look nice.
thank you.
Yeah.
We're in the process now of getting the daycare ready to finish up before the school year in September, so they want us just to come back, I guess, one more time, just to make sure we're all set.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I read this is exactly what was outlined in the original proposal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you have all of your state permitting and everything for the change to the daycare? Okay.
Yeah, everything's set.
So from our agenda, I see 72 children, 15 employees, and the relocation of the second floor office space we already knew was on the original plan, so that's not really a change.
Right.
Michelle, is there any other change here? We don't have to do anything with parking. I know we already reviewed the parking for the new.
Parking is fine, I checked it again, and, I mean, the only thing was, we just had a special permit as part of this, and the special permit had the original numbers for the daycare center, which were less than current, so we wanted to make sure that we amended the resolution to end the special permit to adjust those daycare numbers, and then also just make sure it was clear that we had a paper trail following the movement of the office to the other building and the daycare upstairs.
As far as, just one other question, with this change, does the bus traffic change at all? Because I
No.
know we had
No,
the
it's-
buses coming in through the site.
Everything remains the same.
All of that, okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from board members? Pete, Scott? Tom? Okay. Do I have a motion to amend the final resolution and the special permit to allow or adjust the language in those documents to allow 72 children and 15 employees in the existing building for a daycare purpose?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And then there's one other thing that I want to add to the agenda very quickly.
Oh, okay, all right, but this one is done.
We're done.
You're done with
Thank
this one,
you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Go ahead, Michelle, sorry.
Okay, so the town board has referred a law to us for the Architectural Review Board, and I'm going to have Tom explain it, but it's essentially some changes to the architectural review, and we're supposed to, it's a referral to us, and we're supposed to give comments back to the town board.
Well, basically, the town code currently provides a very formalized process for the role of the ARB. And what we're trying to do is to do two things, I guess, is streamline the process, and number two, to make the process match, or make the law match the process we've been following. Because what's happened is many times an applicant is before you, they're also before the ARB. They theoretically get what they feel is an approval of an architectural rendering. You then have your public hearing, and you grant approval, and things are kind of done. The way the law currently reads is they're supposed to give a preliminary approval. The rendering's supposed to be placed here before you during your public hearing. Any comments that are made about it are then referred back to the ARB, and then the ARB is supposed to formally approve it going forward. So what we've attempted to do is to do what many towns have done, is the ARB, it will serve in that same role basically as far as the architecture, but they'll be advisory to this board. So they'll meet with the applicants, kind of work out the architectural. It comes to you, and then in your resolution of final approval, you'll be approving the architectural rendering that's before you. And this way we have a clear, concise copy of what's being approved, how it is, and everybody should be happy thereafter that they know what's done. So hopefully this will eliminate some of the interim back and forth that has gone on before, and hopefully one, maybe two visits with the ARB will solve that problem. It also gives you a little more control that, you know, as you often know, sometimes you ask an applicant to move a building back or move it to the side, and that may change the elevations, and this way it will be a working project here, and you'll actually see what it looks like. So that's the concept.
And Michelle, when do we need to have comments back for that? You said the town board sent it to us for comment?
I don't know when they're approving it, I'm not sure.
I mean,
Well,
it sounds straightforward, but I'm not.
It's on again, the public hearing was continued until June 27th. But obviously, if you need more time, they could continue it a little further.
Does anybody have any comments right off that they would like me to record? Do you want to just send
Sounds
them
like it'll just formalize it so it's clear to an applicant that they don't have any final approval until a planning board's final approval, which I think will make things a lot more straightforward. I don't want to take away the abilities of, depending on comment we receive in a public hearing, to be able to go back to the ARB with that comment. but I
And
think
also,
it
one
sounds like we
important
can still-
feature that is the ARB will also designate a member to come be at your meeting
Oh, good.
on the evenings of, pertinent evenings when there's a discussion of the building and everything. So you'll have their direct input right here as it occurs.
Sounds good.
If I could, at the business forum, there were a couple of groups that spoke that said they felt like, that their proposals were being kind of tamped down by the architect. Is there any kind of like a redress in this that says if they feel like the architectural review board is limiting them?
Well, that would be, the planning board will be the approval authority now.
Right.
So the architectural review board is going to send you their comments and suggestions, but since you're the approval authority at the end of the architectural plan, you can make those adjustments.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did we get a copy of that, or it will come out?
Yes. Yes, it was sent to us by Pam,
Oh. Okay. When?
just recently.
I thought it was more recent, but this has May
Okay.
30th.
Okay, thank you.
So if anybody has any specific comments, they can send them to me, and I'll generate a memo like I typically do for the town board.
I mean, definitely, we appreciate trying to streamline the process and make it easier for the boards and the applicants to understand what's happening. Michelle, maybe, and I don't know if this would be part of the law or not, but I think, and I sometimes, just thinking tonight, we set up a site visit, maybe that's also something where we can encourage the ARB to join us on any site visits that would be relevant to approvals they would be making as well. I don't know that, again, that needs to go in the law, but just as some feedback. And really, almost, I think if the planning board's going out, maybe any of our advisory boards should be advised of a site visit in case they want to join us. That would be, we've got a Conservation Advisory Council and some other venues that we receive feedback from by our advisory board. We should probably let them know so that if other members want to come to those, Tom, there's something that stops us from inviting other members, right?
Not at all, you can, yeah.
But they bring dessert.
Exactly. donuts and
Or coffee, right?
Or
If it's
coffee.
milky. Okay, fair enough. No, seriously, I mean, I think
Yeah,
it makes it
yeah.
easier for everybody
Yeah.
if we've all kind of been there at the same time to see the site.
And exchange, hear the other exchanges.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for tonight? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're not gonna ask